The desert wind carried the scent of danger as Jack Morrison rode his weary horse through the rocky canyon. His weathered hands gripped the reins tightly, blue eyes scanning the towering red cliffs for any sign of movement. 3 days had passed. Since the outlaws had raided his cattle ranch, stealing his prize horses and burning his barn to the ground, now he tracked them through Apache territory, knowing full well he might not return alive. Jack was a simple cowboy who had worked hard to build his small ranch near the Arizona border. At 28, he had sun-darkened skin from years under the desert sun and calloused hands that spoke of honest work. His father had left him the land, and Jack had dreams of expanding it into something greater. Those dreams now lay in ashes, destroyed by the notorious Bledsoe gang as his horse picked its way carefully down a narrow trail. Jack heard the sharp crack of a rifle shot echo through the canyon. His horse reared in panic, and Jack fought to stay in the saddle. Before he could react, another shot rang out, this one striking the rocks just inches from his head. Someone was shooting at him with deadly accuracy. Jack quickly dismounted and led his horse behind a large boulder for cover. His heart pounded as he drew his revolver and peered around the rock. The shots had come from high above, from someone positioned perfectly to pick off travelers in the canyon below. But who was shooting, and why? A third shot shattered the morning silence. But this time Jack saw the muzzle flash from a ledge about 50 feet up the canyon wall. The shooter was hidden behind a cluster of desert brush, invisible except for that telltale flash. Jack knew he was trapped. His horse was too exposed to mount, and the canyon offered no other cover. Then something unexpected happened. What figure emerged from behind the rocks above, moving with the fluid grace of a mountain cat. It was a woman, dressed in the traditional clothing of the Apache people. She had long black hair that caught the morning light, and she carried an old but well-maintained rifle. But instead of aiming at Jack, she was pointing her weapon in a completely different direction. The woman fired 3 quick shots into the rocks across the canyon, and Jack heard a man cry out in pain. Someone else had been up there, someone who had been shooting at him. The Apache woman had just saved his life by taking out his attacker. Jack watched in amazement as the woman began climbing down the steep canyon wall with remarkable skill. She moved from handhold to handhold like she had been born to these rocks. Within minutes, she had reached the canyon floor and was walking toward him with her rifle held ready but not threatening. As she approached, Jack could see that she was young, perhaps 25, with proud, intelligent dark eyes and high cheekbones. Her clothing was practical buckskin pants and a woven shirt that allowed for easy movement. She wore her hair in a single braid down her back, and turquoise beads decorated her belt. The woman stopped about 10 feet away and studied Jack carefully. When she spoke, her English was clear, but accented with the musical tones of her native language. "You are far from home, cowboy. This is not a safe place for your kind." Jack holstered his gun and raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "Name's Jack Morrison, ma'am. I'm tracking some men who robbed my ranch. I'm grateful for your help back there." The woman nodded once. "I am called Ayanna by your people. It means eternal bloom in your language. The man who was shooting at you was Frank Bledsoe. He and his gang have been using these canyons as their hideout." Jack's eyes widened. Frank Bledsoe was exactly who he was looking for. "You know Bledsoe?" Ayanna's expression hardened, and Jack saw pain flash across her features. "He and his men attacked my village 3 moons ago. They killed my brother and stole our horses. They took my younger sister as well." The weight of shared loss settled between them. Both had suffered at the hands of the same outlaws. Both had reasons to want justice. Jack felt an immediate connection to this brave woman who had just risked her life to save a stranger. "How many men does he have?" Jack asked. 8, maybe 9, now that you wounded one of them during your escape," Ayanna replied. "They are dangerous and well-armed. They know these canyons better than most white men, but not better than Apache." Jack made a decision that would change everything. "Miss Ayanna, would you consider joining forces with me? I need to get my horses back, and you need to rescue your sister. Together, we might have a chance against them." Ayanna was quiet for a long moment, weighing the proposal. Working with a white cowboy went against everything her people had taught her about survival. But her sister's life hung in the balance, and she had seen something in Jack's eyes that told her he was different from other white men she had encountered. "These outlaws are cruel and ruthless," she said finally. "They will not hesitate to kill us both. And if we are caught together, my people will consider me a traitor, and yours will call me a savage." Jack met her gaze steadily. "Then we better not get caught." A small smile played at the corners of Ayana's mouth. Despite everything, she found herself trusting this earnest cowboy who was willing to risk everything for what was right. "Very well, Jack Morrison, but we do this my way, using Apache methods. Can you handle that?" Jack extended his hand toward her. "Lead on, Miss Ayana. I'm ready to learn." As Ayana clasped his hand briefly, both of them felt something electric pass between them. Neither spoke of it, but both recognized that this partnership might become something much deeper than a simple alliance of convenience. The desert wind continued to blow around them, carrying the promise of danger and the possibility of something neither had expected to find. Ayana led Jack deeper into the maze of canyons, moving with the silence of a hunting cat. She had spent her entire life in these desert lands, learning from her grandfather how to read the signs that nature left behind. Every broken twig, every displaced stone told a story to those who knew how to listen. Jack struggled to keep up with her pace while trying to make as little noise as possible. His boots felt clumsy and loud compared to her soft moccasins that seemed to barely touch the ground. She moved like the desert itself, flowing around obstacles rather than fighting through them. He was beginning to understand why Apache warriors were so feared by settlers and soldiers alike. They traveled for hours without speaking, communicating only through hand signals that Ayana taught him along the way. Jack found himself studying her movements not just to learn stealth, but because he was drawn to her natural grace. There was something about this woman that stirred feelings he had never experienced before. When the sun reached its highest point, Ayana finally called for a rest in the shade of a towering rock formation. She produced dried meat and water from a hidden pouch, sharing it with Jack without ceremony. As they ate, she began to tell him what she knew about the Bledsoe gang. "They have made camp in a box canyon about 2 hours from here," she explained, sketching a rough map in the sand with her finger. "There is only one way in and out, which makes it perfect for defense, but also makes them trapped if someone blocks the entrance." Jack studied her map carefully. "How do you know all this?" Ayana's eyes grew distant with painful memory. "I have been watching them for many days, looking for a chance to get my sister back. But they always keep guards posted, and Maya is never left alone. They use her for cooking and cleaning, but Frank Bledsoe watches her constantly." The way she said her sister's name told Jack how much Maya meant to her. He could hear the love and desperation in her voice. "What's your sister like?" A genuine smile crossed Ayana's face for the first time since they had met, full of laughter and mischief. "She loves to sing while she works, and she has a gift for finding beauty in the smallest things. Our mother died when Maya was young, so I have raised her as my own daughter." Jack felt his heart clench at the thought of this gentle girl in the hands of brutal outlaws. "We'll get her back, Ayana. I promise you that." Something in his voice made Ayana look at him closely. She saw sincerity in his weathered face and strength in the set of his jaw. This cowboy was not making empty promises. He meant every word, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the desert heat. They resumed their journey, moving even more carefully as they approached outlaw territory. Ayana taught Jack how to use the desert plants as cover, how to move during the wind gusts that would mask any sound, and how to read the flight patterns of birds that might give away human presence as afternoon faded toward evening. They reached a high ridge that overlooked the box canyon where the Bledsoe gang had made their camp. Jack lay flat on his belly beside Ayana, using her small spyglass to study the layout below. The outlaws had chosen their spot well. The canyon was about 100 yards wide and twice as long, with sheer walls on 3 sides and only a narrow entrance that could be easily defended. Jack counted 8 men moving around the camp, confirming Ayana's estimate of their numbers. In the center of the canyon, a campfire burned bright against the gathering dusk. Jack could see his stolen horses. In a makeshift corral near the far wall, at least 20 animals, including his prized stallion Thunder. The sight of his stolen property made anger surge through him, but he forced himself to remain calm and observant. Then he saw Maya. She was kneeling beside the fire, preparing food for the outlaws under the watchful eye of Frank Bledsoe himself. Even from a distance, Jack could see the family resemblance between the sisters. Maya had the same graceful movements and proud bearing as Ayanna, but her spirit seemed dimmed by captivity and fear. Ayanna gripped the rock so tightly that her knuckles went white. "She looks so thin," she whispered. "They are not feeding her enough." Jack placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, feeling the tension in her muscles. "She's strong, just like her sister. She's surviving until we can get her out of there." Spent the next hour studying the camp routine, noting when guards changed positions and where weapons were stored. As full darkness fell, most of the outlaws gathered around the fire for their evening meal, leaving only 2 men on guard duty. "Is our best chance," Ayanna said quietly. "But we need a distraction to draw them away from Maya." Jack had been thinking the same thing. "What if I create some noise at the horse corral and they go to investigate? You could slip in and get your sister." Ayanna shook her head. "Too dangerous. If they catch you, they'll kill you before I can help. And if they catch me with Maya, they might hurt her to punish me." They debated options in whispers as the night grew deeper. The moon was only a thin sliver, which would help conceal their movements, but also make the rescue more difficult. Every minute they delayed was another minute Maya remained in captivity. Finally, Jack had an idea. "What if we don't try to sneak in at all? What if we make them come to us?" Ayanna looked at him questioningly, and Jack explained his plan. It was dangerous and required precise timing, but it just might work. They would use the outlaws' greed against them, setting a trap that would draw them out of their stronghold, and into the open desert where Jack and Ayanna would have the advantage, as they prepared to put the plan into action. Jack caught Ayanna's hand in his. "If something goes wrong down there, I want you to know that meeting you has been the best thing that's happened to me in years." Ayanna felt her heart skip a beat at his touch and his words. She had never expected to feel such connection with a white man, but Jack was different. He treated her as an equal, valued her knowledge, and was willing to risk his life for her family. "You are a good man, Jack Morrison," she replied softly. "My grandfather always said that courage and honor have no color. I think he would have liked you." They sealed their partnership with a look that promised much more than simple cooperation. Then began their descent into the canyon, where danger and hope waited in equal measure. Jack crept through the darkness toward the narrow canyon entrance, his heart pounding with each careful step. The plan was simple but dangerous. He would stampede the horses while Ayanna created chaos from above with her rifle. In the confusion, she would rescue Maya while Jack led the stolen animals to safety. Moving like a ghost through the shadows, Jack reached the horse corral without being detected. His beloved stallion Thunder nickered softly in recognition, and Jack had to fight back emotion at seeing his old friend again. These horses represented years of careful breeding and training, his life's work stolen in a single night of violence. Above him, Ayanna had positioned herself on a rocky ledge with a clear view of the camp. She held her rifle ready, waiting for Jack's signal. 3 quick whistles that would sound like a desert owl. Her dark eyes swept the camp, locating each outlaw and planning her shots to create maximum confusion without hitting Maya. Jack began cutting the ropes that held the makeshift corral together. The horses sensed something was happening and began moving restlessly, their hooves scraping against the rocky ground. One of the guards looked up from his poker game, squinting into the darkness. "What's got the horses spooked?" The guard called out to his partner. "Probably just a coyote," came the lazy reply. "They'll settle down." Jack knew he had to move fast before the guards investigated further. He gave the 3 quick whistles, then slapped Thunder hard on the rump. The stallion bolted forward, smashing through the remaining rope barriers and leading the other horses in a thundering stampede toward the canyon entrance. Instantly, the camp exploded into chaos. Men shouted and dove for cover as 20 panicked horses charged through their midst, scattering supplies and kicking over the campfire. Sparks flew everywhere, and someone screamed as burning embers landed on his bedroll. Ayana's rifle cracked. From above, and one of the guards spun around clutching his shoulder. She fired again, shattering a lantern and plunging part of the camp into darkness. The outlaws scrambled for their weapons, confused about where the attack was coming from. "It's an ambush." Frank Bledsoe roared above the noise. "Get to cover. And find those shooters." In the confusion, Maya had been knocked to the ground near the scattered fire. She looked up toward the ridge where the shots were coming from, and her heart leaped as she recognized the distinctive Apache fighting style. Her sister had come for her. Ayana rappelled down the canyon wall using a rope she had prepared earlier, moving with the speed and agility of her warrior ancestors. She landed near Maya, just as her sister was struggling to her feet, both women's eyes filling with tears of relief and joy. "Ayana," Maya whispered, throwing her arms around her older sister, "I knew you would come for me." "Stay close and do exactly as I say," Ayana commanded, helping Maya to her feet. "We're getting out of here right now." But their reunion was cut short as Frank Bledsoe emerged from the chaos with his gun drawn. The outlaw leader was a big man with cold eyes and a cruel smile that showed gold teeth. He had spotted the two women and was moving toward them with deadly purpose. Well, Bledsoe drawled, keeping his weapon trained on them. "Looks like the little Apache princess came to rescue her sister. How touching." Ayana pushed Maya behind her and faced Bledsoe with fierce courage. "Let her go. Your fight is with me." Bledsoe laughed harshly. "My fight is with whoever I say it's with. You just cost me a lot of horses and probably some men. I think I'll keep both of you now as payment for the trouble you've caused." Jack appeared out of the darkness behind Bledsoe, like an avenging angel. The outlaw leader sensed movement and started to turn, but Jack's fist connected with his jaw in a devastating punch that sent him sprawling. Bledsoe's gun flew from his hand and clattered across the rocks. "The name's Jack Morrison," Jack said, grimly as Bledsoe shook his head and tried to focus. "You burned my ranch and stole my horses. Time to pay the bill." Bledsoe wiped blood from his split lip and smiled viciously. "Jack Morrison, I remember you. You put up quite a fight when we hit your place. Too bad you didn't die then, would have saved us all this trouble." The outlaw leader reached for a knife at his belt, but Ayana was faster. Her own blade flashed in the firelight, coming to rest against Bledsoe's throat with deadly precision. "Move and die," she said simply. Around them, the remaining outlaws were regrouping and searching for their escaped prisoners. Shouts and gunfire echoed through the canyon as Jack's stampede continued to cause havoc, but it was only a matter of time before the gang organized an effective pursuit. "We need to get out of here now," Jack said urgently. "Can you ride?" he asked Maya, the young Apache woman nodded, though fear still showed in her dark eyes. "I can ride." Jack whistled sharply, and thunder appeared out of the darkness, trained to respond to his master's call, even in the midst of chaos. Two other horses followed, and Jack quickly helped both women mount up. "What about him?" Ayana asked. Still holding her knife at Bledsoe's throat, Jack looked down at the outlaw leader with contempt. "He's not worth killing in cold blood." "But Frank," he added, grabbing the man's shirt front, "if I ever see you again, I'll finish what we started here tonight." They left Bledsoe tied up with his own rope and spurred their horses toward the canyon entrance. Behind them, gunshots rang out as the remaining outlaws spotted their escape, but the three riders were already disappearing into the maze of desert passages that Ayana knew like the back of her hand. They rode hard through the night, following hidden trails that no white man had ever seen. Maya clung to her horse's mane, her rescue still feeling like a dream after weeks of captivity and despair. Jack stayed close beside Ayana, marveling at how she navigated by starlight through terrain that looked identical to him in every direction. As dawn broke over the distant mountains, they finally stopped to rest near a hidden spring that bubbled up from deep underground. The horses drank gratefully while Jack and the two sisters caught their breath and assessed their situation. Maya threw her arms around Ayana again, sobbing with relief and gratitude. "I thought I would never see you again, sister," they said. "Terrible things about what they would do to our village." Ayana held her younger sister close, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "You are safe now. That's all that matters." Jack stood apart from the sisters' reunion, checking his weapons and scanning the horizon for any signs of pursuit. But he couldn't help watching Ayanna as she comforted Maya, seeing the fierce love and protectiveness that drove her to risk everything for family. When Maya finally pulled back from her sister's embrace, she looked curiously at Jack. "Who is this man who helped rescue me?" Ayanna looked at Jack with an expression that held new warmth and admiration. "This is Jack Morrison. He is a friend who has proven himself to be a man of honor." The way she said it made Jack's heart skip a beat. In her eyes, he saw something that went far beyond gratitude or simple partnership. Despite the danger they still faced, despite the cultural barriers between them, something profound had grown between them during their shared ordeal. But their moment of peace was shattered by the distant sound of hoofbeats echoing off canyon. Walls, Frank Bledsoe, and his remaining men were coming after them, and the chase was far from over. The sound of approaching horses sent a chill through the small group resting by the hidden spring. Ayanna quickly helped Maya to her feet while Jack checked his ammunition. They had perhaps 10 minutes before Bledsoe's gang would find them, and the Outlaws would be riding hard with vengeance in their hearts. "There's an old Apache stronghold about an hour's ride from here," Ayanna said quickly, pointing toward a series of towering red mesas. "If we can reach it, we can make a stand." Jack looked at the distant rock formations with concern. "Will your people welcome us there?" "I don't want to bring trouble to your tribe." Ayanna's expression was grim. "The stronghold has been abandoned for many seasons. My people moved to the reservation after the last war with the Blue Soldiers, but the caves and passages are still there, and they are easily defended." Maya looked pale but determined. "I can make the ride, sister. Don't worry about me." They mounted their horses and rode hard toward the mesas, pushing their animals to the limit. Behind them, dust clouds marked the progress of their pursuers, who were slowly but steadily gaining ground. Jack's stolen horses were tired from the previous night's stampede, while Bledsoe's men rode fresh mounts as they climbed higher into the rocky terrain. The landscape became more treacherous. Narrow trails wound between towering stone pillars, and one wrong step could send horse and rider tumbling hundreds of feet to the canyon floor below. But Ayanna guided them with sure knowledge. Following paths she had learned as a child, they reached the stronghold just as their pursuers entered. The base of the mesa system, the ancient Apache fortification, was built into the living rock itself, with caves and passages that had been expanded and connected over generations. It was a place where a few determined defenders could hold off a much larger force. Jack helped Maya dismount, while Ayanna quickly surveyed their defensive options. The main cave mouth faced the only approach trail, with smaller openings higher up that would provide perfect positions for riflemen. Water seeped from cracks in the rock, ensuring they wouldn't die of thirst during a prolonged siege. "Jack, can you handle a rifle from an elevated position?" Ayanna asked, pointing to a narrow ledge about 30 feet above the main cave. "I can hit what I aim at," Jack replied grimly, checking his weapons one more time. Maya surprised them both by speaking up. "I know how to shoot as well. Ayanna taught me when I was 12. Ayanna looked at her younger sister with concern. "Maya, you've been through enough. Stay in the back caves where you'll be safe," Maya said firmly, with a strength that reminded Jack strongly of Ayanna. "These men killed our brother and destroyed our village. I want to fight them too." Before Ayanna could argue further, the sound of hoofbeats echoed from the trail below. Bledsoe's gang had arrived, and there was no more time for discussion. Jack scrambled up to his elevated position while the sisters took cover behind rock formations near the cave mouth. Frank Bledsoe appeared at the bottom of the approach trail with 6 men behind him. The outlaw leader had a bloody bandage around his head and murder in his eyes, cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Up at the stronghold, Morrison. I know you're up there with those Apache women. Send them down, and maybe I'll kill you quick instead of slow." Jack's voice echoed back from the rocks. "Come and take them, Bledsoe." Outlaw leader's response was to signal his men to spread out and begin the assault. They had rope and climbing equipment, planning to scale the rock face and attack from multiple directions. But they had never faced Apache warriors fighting from prepared positions. Ayanna's rifle cracked, and one of the climbing outlaws cried out as her bullet shattered his shoulder. He lost his grip and tumbled 20 feet to the rocky ground below, landing with a sickening thud. The other climbers hesitated, suddenly realizing they were exposed targets on the open rock face. Jack's shot took out another man who was trying to find cover behind a boulder. His bullet ricocheted off the stone and caught the outlaw in the leg, sending him hopping away, cursing and bleeding. Maya added her own shot from a protected position, the bullet striking so close to another outlaw that he dove for cover and stayed there. "They've got us pinned down," one of Bledsoe's men shouted. "Can't get up there without losing more people." Bledsoe's face twisted with rage. "Then we wait them out. They can't stay up there forever, and we've got all the time in the world." As the afternoon wore on, it became clear that the siege was favoring the defenders. The outlaws were exposed on the rocky slopes with limited cover, while Jack and the sisters could fire from protected positions. Every time one of Bledsoe's men tried to advance, accurate rifle fire drove them back. As evening approached, Jack began to worry about their long-term situation. They had limited ammunition, and while the stronghold was well defended, they couldn't stay there indefinitely. Sooner or later, Bledsoe would think of something that would give him the advantage. During a lull in the fighting, Ayanna worked her way up to Jack's position. The dangerous climb didn't seem to bother her at all, and she moved with the confidence of someone completely at home in the vertical world of desert stone. "How much ammunition do you have left?" she asked quietly. Jack checked his remaining cartridges. "Maybe 20 rounds for the rifle, 6 for my pistol." "What about you and Maya?" "About the same. We need to end this soon, or they'll simply wait until we run out of bullets." Jack studied the outlaw positions below. Bledsoe had his men spread out among the rocks, but they were all focused on the stronghold entrance. The outlaw leader himself was positioned behind a large boulder about 100 yards away, directing his men's movements. "What if I could get behind them?" Jack suggested. "There's got to be another way down from these cliffs. If I could circle around and hit them from behind, you and Maya could catch them in crossfire." Ayanna considered the idea, then shook her head. "Too dangerous alone. But there's another possibility." She pointed to a series of connected caves that led deeper into the mesa. "These passages go all the way through the mountain. I could come out behind them while you and Maya keep them busy from here." "Absolutely not," Jack said firmly. "I won't let you take that risk." Ayanna's eyes flashed with independence and determination. "You won't let me, Jack Morrison? I am Apache. Been fighting enemies since I was old enough to hold a weapon. This is my land, my fight, and my decision." Looking into her fierce dark eyes, Jack realized that trying to protect Ayanna by keeping her from the battle would be both insulting and futile. She was a warrior, and warriors fought. All he could do was trust in her skills and courage.
At all.
"Right," he said finally, "but promise me you'll be careful. I've gotten used to having you around." Something warm flickered in Ayanna's expression. "Is that your way of saying you care about me, Cowboy?" Jack met her gaze steadily. "It's my way of saying I more than care about you. When this is over, I'd like the chance to tell you just how much." Ayanna felt her heart leap at his words, despite everything they had been through, despite the cultural divide between them. She had fallen for this brave, honorable man who treated her as an equal and fought beside her without question. "When this is over," she replied softly, "I would like to hear what you have to say." As darkness began to fall over the mesa, Ayanna prepared to make her dangerous journey through the mountain passages. The fate of all 3 of them would depend on her ability to outfight and outthink Frank Bledsoe and his remaining men. Ayanna disappeared into the dark passages of the mesa as full darkness settled over the stronghold. Jack watched her go with his heart in his throat, knowing that everything depended on her ability to navigate the treacherous cave system and emerge behind Bledsoe's men without being detected. Maya moved closer to Jack's position, her rifle ready and her young face set with grim determination. "My sister is the best tracker and warrior in our tribe," she said quietly, as if sensing Jack's worry. "If anyone can do this, she can." Jack nodded, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. "How long should it take her to work through those passages?" "Maybe an hour if the way is clear," Maya replied. "But some of those caves have not been used for many seasons. There might be rockfalls or other obstacles." Below them, Bledsoe's men had built small fires and settled in for what they clearly expected to be a long siege. The outlaw leader had positioned himself where he could watch both the main trail and the stronghold entrance. Confident that his quarry was trapped with nowhere to run, Jack studied the enemy positions through the growing darkness, memorizing where each man was located. When Ayanna made her move, he and Maya would need to provide covering fire that would prevent the outlaws from regrouping or escaping. An hour passed, and another. Jack began to worry that something had gone wrong. In the caves, perhaps Ayanna had encountered a passage blocked by fallen stone, or maybe she had gotten lost in the maze of tunnels. The thought of her trapped alone in the darkness made his chest tight with fear. Then, just as Jack was beginning to consider going after her, a rifle shot cracked from somewhere behind Bledsoe's camp. One of the outlaws cried out and fell forward. Clutching his shoulder, Ayanna had made it through the mountain and was in position. Now, Jack shouted to Maya, and both of them opened fire on the confused outlaws below. Caught between two firing positions, Bledsoe's men panicked. Some tried to return fire toward the stronghold. Others spun around to face the new threat from behind. In the chaos, they were hitting nothing while taking accurate shots from both Jack and Ayanna. Bledsoe himself dove behind his boulder and tried to organize his men. "It's just one person behind us," he roared. "Tommy, you and Pete circle around and flank them. The rest of you, keep those two in the cave pinned down." But Ayanna was no longer in the position where she had fired her first shot. Moving like a ghost through the darkness, she had already relocated to a new firing position 50 yards away. When Tommy and Pete tried to outflank her original spot, they found nothing but empty rocks and shadows. Her next shot took Pete in the leg, sending him tumbling down a steep slope with a scream of pain and terror. Tommy fired wildly at the muzzle flash, but Ayanna was already gone, moving to yet another position with the fluid grace of a hunting cat. From the stronghold, Jack kept up steady pressure on the outlaws who were trying to assault the cave mouth. His shots were carefully aimed and devastating, each bullet finding its mark with deadly precision. Maya added her own rifle fire, and together they made it impossible for anyone to advance up the trail. One by one, Bledsoe's men fell to the crossfire, or fled into the darkness, unwilling to die for the outlaw leader's vendetta. Within 30 minutes of Ayanna's first shot, only Bledsoe himself remained, crouched behind his boulder with bullets chipping stone all around him. "Bledsoe," Jack called out, "it's over. Your men are dead or gone. Surrender now, and we'll let you live." The outlaw leader's response was a string of curses and a wild shot that went high over the stronghold. "I ain't done yet, Morrison. You think you've won? But I've got one more card to play." Jack saw movement below and realized with horror that Bledsoe was lighting a stick of dynamite. The outlaw leader intended to blast his way into the stronghold, even if it meant bringing down half the mountain. If that dynamite went off in the confined space of the caves, it would kill all three of them. Ayanna Jack shouted into the darkness. "He's got dynamite." Ayanna had seen the danger as well. She was too far away to get a clear shot at Bledsoe before he could throw the explosive, but she might be able to reach him if she moved fast enough. Without hesitation, she left her covered position and sprinted across the open ground, her moccasins silent on the rocky terrain. Bledsoe saw her coming and swung his gun toward her, the burning fuse of the dynamite stick clutched in his other hand. "Come on then, Apache witch. Let's all die together." Ayanna dove to the side as Bledsoe's shot rang out, the bullet passing so close she felt it part her hair. She rolled behind a small outcropping just as the outlaw leader drew back his arm to hurl the dynamite toward the stronghold. Jack's rifle cracked from above, and his bullet struck Bledsoe's throwing arm just as he released the explosive. Dynamite tumbled short of its target, bouncing off the rocks and rolling back toward Bledsoe himself. The outlaw leader's eyes went wide with terror as he realized what was about to happen. The explosion lit up the night, like a miniature sun, the concussion echoing off the mesa walls in rolling thunder. When the dust and smoke cleared, Frank Bledsoe was gone. Nothing remaining but scattered rocks and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the distant cry of a nightbird and the soft whisper of wind through. Stone, Jack, and Maya scrambled down from the stronghold, while Ayanna emerged from her cover. all three of them moving cautiously in case any of Bledsoe's men were still lurking in the darkness. They found no other outlaws. The survivors had fled into the desert rather than face certain death. The long ordeal was finally over. Jack's horses had been recovered, Maya was free, and Frank Bledsoe would never threaten anyone again. As the three of them stood together in the aftermath of battle, the full weight of what they had accomplished began to sink in. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious through courage, teamwork, and determination. But more than that, they had forged bonds that went far deeper than simple alliance. Maya looked between her sister and Jack with knowing eyes. Even in the midst of their life and death struggle, she had seen the way they looked at each other, the way they moved together as if they could read each other's thoughts. Her sister had found something precious in this unlikely partnership. "We should head back to the spring and rest," Ayanna said practically. "There will be time to celebrate when we're somewhere safe." They made their way back through the darkness to the hidden water source where they had rested earlier. The horses were still there, grazing peacefully in the moonlight, as if the violence and terror of the past few hours had never happened. As Maya curled up in a blanket to sleep, exhaustion finally claiming her, Jack and Ayanna sat together by the spring. The crisis was over, but now they had to face the question of what came next. They came from different worlds, and the path ahead was far from clear. "What will you do now?" Jack asked quietly. "Will you return to the reservation with Maya?" Nia was silent for a long moment, staring up at the star-filled sky. "The reservation holds nothing for us but poverty and hopelessness. The white government promises much, but delivers little. Maya and we need to find our own way." Jack took a deep breath, knowing he was about to take the biggest risk of his life. What if you didn't have to find that way alone? Had somewhere else to go, somewhere you'd be welcome? Ayanna turned to look at him, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. "What are you saying, Jack Morrison?" "I'm saying that my ranch has plenty of room for 3 people instead of 1. I'm saying that I've never met anyone as brave, intelligent, and capable as you are. I'm saying that these past few days have shown me what my life was missing." He reached out and took her hand in his, feeling the calluses from years of hard work and the strength that had never failed him when he needed it most. "I'm saying that I love you, Ayanna, and I'd be honored if you'd consider making a life with me." Ayanna felt tears spring to her eyes. She had never expected to hear such words from any man, let alone a white cowboy who had every reason to see her as different and foreign. But Jack had proven himself to be unlike any man she had ever known. "The people in your town will not accept an Apache woman as your wife," she said softly. "It will call you names and turn away from you. Are you prepared for that?" Jack squeezed her hand gently. "Let them talk. The only opinion that matters to me is yours. Will you have me, Ayanna? Will you take a chance on building something new together?" Ayanna looked into his sincere blue eyes and saw her future reflected there. A future where she wouldn't have to hide who she was or apologize for her heritage. A future where she could use her skills and intelligence as a partner, not a servant. A future filled with love and respect and the kind of happiness she had never dared to dream of. "Yes, Jack Morrison," she said, her voice strong with conviction. "I will marry you, and together we will build something that neither of us could create alone." Jack leaned forward and kissed her softly, tasting the salt of happy tears on her lips. In the distance, Maya pretended to be asleep while smiling. To herself, her sister had found her match in this honorable cowboy, and Maya knew their future would be bright. 6 months later, Jack Morrison stood on the porch of his rebuilt ranch house. Watching the sun set over the desert landscape, he had come to love even more deeply. The attack by Bledsoe's gang felt like a lifetime ago, though the lessons learned during those dangerous days continued to shape his life in ways he never could have imagined. The ranch had been transformed since Ayanna and Maya had come to live there. What had once been a simple bachelor's homestead was now a thriving operation that combined the best of both Apache wisdom and cowboy practicality. Ayanna had taught Jack how to read the land in new ways, showing him where water could be found during dry seasons and which plants could provide medicine for both humans and animals, Maya had blossomed in the safety and freedom of the ranch. The trauma of her captivity had faded as she threw herself into learning everything she could about ranching. She had a natural gift with horses that amazed Jack, able to gentle even the most spirited animals with patience and understanding. Her laughter once again rang across the desert. Just as Ayanna had remembered, the wedding had taken place 3 months after Bledsoe's death, performed by a traveling minister who asked no questions about the bride's heritage. Some of the local townspeople had indeed been hostile, as Ayanna had predicted. But others had been surprisingly accepting once they saw how happy and successful the unlikely couple had become. Jack's neighbor, old Tom Bradley, had been one of the first to welcome Ayanna. "That Apache woman of yours has more sense about cattle and horses than most men I know," he had told Jack approvingly. "You're a lucky man, Morrison." The ranch's success spoke for itself. Jack's cattle were healthier, his horses were better trained, and his land was more productive than it had ever been. Ayanna's knowledge of desert survival and Maya's intuitive connection with animals had created a partnership that was both profitable and deeply fulfilling. But the greatest change was in Jack himself. The lonely, somewhat bitter man who had once worked his land in isolation had been replaced by someone who had found his other half. Ayanna challenged him intellectually, supported him emotionally, and loved him with a fierce loyalty that took his breath away. Their marriage had not been without challenges. There were still people in town who made cruel comments or refused to do business with them. The territorial government's policies toward Apache people created constant stress and uncertainty, and there were nights when Ayanna would wake from nightmares about losing everyone she loved, requiring Jack's gentle comfort to chase away the darkness. But they had faced every obstacle together, their partnership growing stronger with each test. Jack had learned some of the Apache language, while Ayanna had mastered the complex economics of cattle ranching. They had created a life that honored both their backgrounds while building something entirely new. On this particular evening, Jack was waiting for Ayanna and Maya to return from a trip to the territorial capital. They had gone to complete the legal paperwork that would officially adopt Maya as Jack's sister-in-law, assuring her protection under territorial law. It was a precaution they hoped would never be necessary, but recent government policies toward Native Americans had made legal documentation essential. As the sun touched the horizon, Jack saw 2 riders approaching across the desert. His heart lifted as he recognized Ayanna's graceful posture in the saddle and Maya's more energetic riding style. They had been gone for 3 days, and he had missed them more than he cared to admit. Ayanna dismounted and ran up the porch steps, into Jack's waiting arms. After 6 months of marriage, she still felt a thrill every time he held her close. "Did you miss us, husband?" "Every minute," Jack replied, kissing her thoroughly before turning to embrace Maya. "How did things go in the capital?" Maya's face lit up with excitement. "The adoption papers are complete, and the territorial judge said I am now officially an American citizen with full legal rights. But that's not the best news we have." Jack looked between the 2 sisters, noting a shared excitement that suggested something significant had happened during their trip. "What else?" Ayanna took his hands in hers, her dark eyes dancing with joy. "Jack Morrison, how would you feel about becoming a father in about 7 months?" Jack's world stopped for a moment as the meaning of her words sank in. Then joy flooded through him like a desert flash flood, overwhelming and transformative. He lifted Ayanna off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing with pure happiness. "Are you sure?" he asked when he finally set her down, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sure," Ayanna replied, placing his hand on her still flat belly. "Our child will be born next spring, when the desert blooms with new life." Maya clapped, her hands in delight. "I'm going to be an aunt. I can teach the baby all about horses and tracking and desert survival." That night, as they sat together on the porch under a canopy of brilliant stars, Jack reflected on the amazing journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, he had been a lonely cowboy with simple dreams of expanding his ranch. Now, he was a husband and soon-to-be father, part of a family that bridged 2 worlds and embodied the best of both. "What are you thinking about?" Ayanna asked, settling more comfortably against his side. "I'm thinking about that first day when I saw you up on that canyon rim with your rifle," Jack replied. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Ayanna smiled, remembering that moment when she had decided to trust this earnest cowboy with her life and her sister's safety. "I thought you were brave, but foolish for tracking Bledsoe alone. I never imagined you would become the center of my world." Maya, who was sitting at their feet and teaching herself to play Jack's old guitar, looked up with a knowing smile. "My grandfather always said that the best things in life come when you're not looking for them. He said they arrive like desert rain, sudden, unexpected, and life-changing." Jack reached down and ruffled Maya's hair affectionately. "Your grandfather was a wise man." As the night deepened around them, the three of them talked about their plans for the future. The baby would need a larger house, and they had already picked out the site for the addition. Maya wanted to start a horse breeding program that would combine Apache training methods with modern ranching techniques. Ayanna hoped to create a school where both Apache and white children could learn together, breaking down the barriers that kept the communities apart. They were ambitious dreams. But then again, their entire life together had been built on taking chances and defying expectations. They had proven that love could overcome cultural differences, that partnership could achieve what neither could accomplish alone, and that courage and determination could triumph over even the most dangerous obstacles. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and the promise of rain as Jack Morrison looked at his wife and sister-in-law, his heart full of gratitude for the twist of fate that had brought them together. In trying to rescue his stolen horses, he had found something far more valuable: a love that would last a lifetime and a family that would carry on their legacy of courage and hope. Their story had begun with violence and desperation, but it was ending with joy and infinite possibility. In the vast desert landscape that had witnessed their struggles and triumphs, Jack, Ayanna, and Maya had created something beautiful and lasting, a testament to the power of love to transform lives and build bridges between worlds.